fact the wall was in Salford and the was a different...
Oh, here we go.
There
you go. He's got his measuring sticker. He's got his meter stick out now. Come on. Would you have Rasmus Højlund now up front instead of Mikel Merino?
The outright defensive Glaze said, well, you know, with respect, Gary, it's not all the Glaze's fault.
This is a problem when you have no oversight in your club. The club has become bloated.
This is 15, 20 years, the biggest project you will do. Do you trust those people to run this?
Which is why Manchester United fans are not being kidded.
Yeah.
They're not being fooled.
You've piled onto the misery at points because of this negligence. You don't care about the club.
This is probably 15 years too late.
It's all well and good having a 100,000-seater stadium. Are you going to fill that for Conference League football at best? If us finishing second is more disappointing than you finishing 14, what has happened to Manchester United?
If you win the Europa League...
Would that be a better season than Arsenal's?
I think it'd be a really good season.
We're going to be sat there on Thursday night. Arsenal are already thinking about the Champions League quarter-final. You're not going to be sat there on Thursday night thinking, wow, at least we're not Arsenal.
Hello and welcome to a very special edition of Inside Devils and Inside Gooners as we join forces to react to the showdown at Old Trafford on Sunday. Thankfully, it was a draw because we could have had a couple of no-shows. I'm not going to lie to you. I probably wouldn't have been here if we took an absolute drubbing. And I know Clive and Rory definitely wouldn't have been here if they took a drubbing. Let's welcome in our guests. Of course, we've got Ryon Scott-Douglas. Shout out to you. You are the guy. We have got Clive and we have got Rory Talks Football as well. And as you can see, Ryan is positioned perfectly because you are on the Man United side of this.
Yes.
Yeah, don't sell out the team.
Oh,
do not join them because it's been a bad season. You are on the right side of that tear.
Yeah, I love what they've done. I'm just seeing, I can't see the Champions League trophy graphic on that side of the studio.
There's a silhouette of what basically is a Champions League next to Rice. It's got the big ears on it.
Yeah.
It's black. It's like an unlocked character on Tekken. It's not, you can't light it up yet.
Next season, son.
Clive and Rory, you are obviously, of course, on the Arsenal side. We are doing sort of a dual show today, and it's a good show to do it. Let's talk about the game on Sunday. There's been a lot that's happened in the United fan base with news today. We'll talk about that later in the show. Clive, let's start with yourself. An interesting trip up to Old Trafford to face the mighty Manchester United languishing in 14th and the mighty Arsenal in 2nd. 2 points dropped, or happy to get out of there with a draw in the end?
Well, after watching the first half, I'm thinking, I wonder if you get 4 points from here. Because United couldn't keep the ball on the pitch and we were quite dominant. And then, of course, the first shot against us goes in, which it's happened before, hasn't it, Rory? It happened before. And then by the end of the game, it was a bit of a 50-50 contest. And I was a touch relieved. But overall, we didn't quite be the team we should have been on the day. But that's it.
How did you see it, Rory? I mean, we spoke a little bit before the show about some Arsenal fans predicting a heavy win, and obviously 7 goals against PSV, even though you haven't got the strike force. So, are the problems there? You're facing 14th. Man United are awful, but it didn't go that way, did it?
No, and to be fair, I didn't think it would. I thought it'd be a 0-0 draw or a 1-0 Arsenal win because it was obvious that United weren't going to set up in the way that PSV did. Even going into the game, I think Amorim just talked about surviving
mate.
And getting into that Sociedad game. And shock, our problems weren't solved in the space of a week with no players coming back. So, no, it was predictable. It was frustrating to concede the goal in the way that we did, which obviously then set us back. And it's 2 points dropped. Will those 2 points have an impact on our season? Probably not, which is why I was surprised by some of the sort of head loss in the fan base after it. Obviously, not beating this United team is embarrassing, arguably, but it is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, for you, Ryan, and should I say for us?
Yeah.
I would say your favourite player. Is your favourite player Garnacho or is it Bruno?
Probably Bruno.
Yeah.
Well, I'm in the Garnacho fan club now. I find myself defending him every other week. That's why. If Garnacho has a bad game, the group chat goes off these days.
And you do defend him. But yeah, Bruno is your favourite player. And listen, Bruno's a player who has taken massive criticism, from Roy Keane, and a lot of people in our fan base are divided. I don't quite understand why, but that's what's happened. A great strike from him. To put us 1-0 up and a good performance from him. How did you see his performance and overall for us in the context of our season and what we've got going on this week as well? How big of a point/performance was that?
I think it's something to cheer about at the end of the day. We haven't had that for God knows how long now. So it was good. It was, on reflection, I feel like it was a fair result as well. But you could argue maybe we had the bigger chances. But on reflection, it was a fair result. Bruno Fernandes, let me tell you something. Who else but Bruno? Who else but Bruno? I had the game down for all banter aside for a draw as well. I wouldn't have been surprised if Arsenal edged it. But I mean, Garnacho had a good game as well. He was going at the Arsenal players too. But Bruno Fernandes, like you say, with the Roy Keane comments, I mean, we spoke about it on this show before. When Roy Keane makes those comments about Bruno Fernandes, what it does is it opens up this discussion all of a sudden about our best player. Is he good? Is he a good captain? Is he a good player? For a lesser player with a lesser mentality, that could affect him. If that affects Bruno, we are done for. We are completely done for. But he comes in once again, he's clutch. Yeah, you could argue, I'm sure there will be an argument about the free kick, about the ball being back, but it's still a good strike. He still has to get it up and over. And I was just so pleased for him to get that goal, I have to say.
Yeah, it was a massive goal, a massive moment in a point of the game before half-time where we usually concede then.
Yeah.
I was literally having shades of Fulham, right? Going, right, we've stayed in this game, there's not been much in it. It's just before half-time, we conceded 2 corners to Fulham. The second one, we conceded a goal. And I just felt, I don't do that against Arsenal. And it was actually the role reversal where we managed to unjustly nick one, if you want to call it that, before half-time.
Yeah.
But I do feel, though, Clive, I'm going to come to you on the free kick, but before I do feel like tactically, yes, we surrendered possession, couldn't really keep the ball well, wasn't much of an attacking threat at all. I think that was the game plan. I think the fact that the manager was talking about surviving this game. And I think we have to look at what Arsenal's Achilles heel is right now. And that is setting up against a team who sit in and say, come and break us down without your main elements of firepower. I've seen Newcastle do that to you. Actually, when you had players, I saw them do that to you in the 1-0 they had at St James's. Yep. Then across the 2 legs in the Carabao Cup, they were really good at that. I saw Forest do that to you. I saw West Ham nick a win by doing exactly that with the Joao Bowen goal. So the blueprint of how to play against this Arsenal team when you're inferior is that. And I would argue Newcastle they got a lot of firepower going the other way. So I wasn't surprised to see us set up like that. And actually in the other 2 games we played against you under Ruben Amorim, 10 men at the Emirates, and even before we went down to 10 men, similar pattern, frustrate, try and nick something. Bruno did the same thing that night. And the game before that, the 2-0 in the Premier League, 2 set pieces, but by way in the open play, I thought we actually did okay and we didn't believe in ourselves enough going the other way. So the blueprint of beating Arsenal was always going to be playing in that way. But the free kick, David Raya, he went on to have a sensational game, but was he at fault for that free kick?
Okay, I'm not having you get away with the
I tried to put that in there. But don't you think that's true?
No, that is true when we don't win the game. When we do win the game, like last year we scored a record amount of goals against teams that play against low blocks. It's been a problem for us, without a doubt.
Since you've got the players missing, I mean.
Yeah, since you've got the players missing. Well, if you lose your forwards who have that explosion, that individuality, we're a team that builds up in wide areas, and then we come off the sides with Bukayo Saka. To be honest, if he's got 2-on-1, he's quite comfortable with 2-on-1. If he has 3-on-1, it comes out of there and we have an overload somewhere else, right? So it's a big part of what we do. You could say we are overly dependent on wide men, and if you are overly dependent on very good wide men, have more than 1 or 2, to make sure you can underpin and ensure your strategy of how you play. I'm fine if we attack in wide areas. I'm fine if we want to go for blocks, but we must make sure we have enough players in case we lose. I'm not sure anyone could foresee 4 top boys going, but there was always an overburden on Saka anyway, if we're honest. And he is the man. I mean, he is everything to us when it comes from an attacking point of view. And so that is the blueprint. And when you've got a centre midfielder up front and a 17-year-old on the right wing, that's even more the blueprint. But players change things. When players come back with those abilities to move through lines and penetrate, then we'll look different again. But that's some of this weakness is on us. We haven't quite fortified the squad to make sure we can attack.
You didn't play the shit at the right time when you could see those players was missing that missed opportunity.
We took a gamble. The volume of games, 11 games in 36 days, and then we had like 7 games, like 6 or 7 weeks. It's like they thought they'd get to that point and they'll be okay. But we lost 2 people just after the transfer window. That killed us really. Stone dead. But as on the free kick, this wasn't my analysis, it's Shay Given's analysis on match of day 2. what Raya was doing, he had a view of the ball, and that's why he was too far to the right. And so what Man United did, unfortunately or unfortunately, Xerxes moved Partey into that block, so he couldn't see the ball.
Oh, the gap in the wall, you mean?
The gap in the
Oh,
wall.
yes, yeah.
He could see the ball all times, and he was waiting until he comes up to it, then move. But suddenly, that got blocked, Bruno takes it, and he doesn't see the ball until it hits the top of the wall. And that's why. The fact the wall was in Salford and was a different...
Oh, here we go. There you go. He's got his measuring sticker. He's got his meter stick out now. Come on.
The fact the wall was that far back as if he had a front row seat in the stand was another thing, right? But that made it easier for him also. But that, for me, that's a little bit of naivety on our part. We should be arguing that fact. We should be arguing the referee. It's very difficult, but that's my feeling.
But naivety there, Rory, in terms of them not creeping forward a little bit of street, being a bit streetwise, saying we're a bit far. Let's steal a couple of yards here.
Yeah, well, I think later on in the game we had a free kick and United were trying to push the.
Yeah.
He measured it out far. I don't know if he's grown legs, the longest stride or something, because Anthony Taylor couldn't measure it out. But yeah, at least the United fans were trying to push themselves forward. I think with Raya, for me, the big thing with standing so far to the side in the way that he did, he's just inviting Bruno to put it there. And the majority of free kicks that you see missed either hit the wall or they're off target. Because of where Raya stood, Bruno's looking at it going, I don't really need to hit this top bins.
Exactly.
Like if I get this on target, there's a good chance it's going to go in. So yeah, for me, it was poor and it was frustrating. But yeah, and to be honest, the amount of talk about the 11.2-yard wall is ridiculous.
Yeah,
I don't think it's
I'm with you on that. I just think whenever you see a free kick go in, that first glance, it always looks great. So it's up and over a wall and you go, wow, what a goal.
Yeah.
As soon as you see it back, for me, if a free kick's not really in the corner, sort of, you know,
It looked weird, didn't it?
Because it was a good strike.
Yeah.
Like the trajectory of the ball, the pace of the ball, the whip. That's great. But the actual position of the goal, it went in, and Ray is still miles off getting it.
Yeah.
So I'm like, that's not right.
Yeah.
That's not right. If it's off the stanchion, or if it's posting in, or it's full stretch and it's right in the corner, you go, tell you what. And I'd love to do that to Bruno and say, no chance for the keeper.
Yeah.
But Ray has got that all wrong. But what he did do for the rest of the game, Clive, is pay you back.
Yeah.
Because that was shades of De Gea 17-18 at the Emirates.
It actually was, to be fair. It was saving the Titanic.
Thank you. I thought I'd forgotten that. But he's been one of our players this season, to be honest. And if you look back over the whole season, I can think of many big saves he's made in games that we've won. And so those saves do change the course of the day, right? So he is a top-class keeper, and he's transformed how we play, because he is an extra man for us. And he allows us to build up how we want to do and progress the ball into those areas where we can't penetrate at the moment. Right? So he is a key part of that, his distribution.
From our perspective, Ryan, let's talk about some of the performances from our players, because I want to talk about I've been saying this, when it's been so bad, which it has, it's been a horrendous season, it's sometimes difficult to see small little rays of light trying to peep their head to say, I'm doing all right. But Lenny Euro, before he come off, but Matthias de Ligt, he's in recent weeks / months, he's really starting to show that he's a competent defender.
Yeah, just solid. Just solid. You know, you need those players that just provide 7s out of 10s all the time. And it looks like De Ligt could, you know, evolve into that kind of player. It's a shame that Yoro's hobbled off as well, by the way, because he's so young. And this is the thing, like, we have been over-reliant on young players. Like Ahmad, for example, like, we've really felt that, and he's so young as well. But there's been some really good performances in there. I know Dalot is getting a bit of slack at the moment, isn't he?
It's had a bad season.
It's such a difficult one with Dalot, because he clearly possesses, he's got a bit of baller about him. He clearly possesses some good attributes, but just his decision-making at times, I mean, with flashing back to squaring it across for Højlund, I felt so sorry for him. We talk about feeding off scraps, so there's still a lot to do in this squad, and there's still some players that will come under some scrutiny, but there's rays of light, as you say. I mean, Garnacho, as I say, Garnacho fan club, but he was direct, and he's the only player really from my perspective who just attacks players, and that's exactly
what I want to see. He's the only player we've got at this, with who we have available as well, because Ahmad's not there. He's the only person in the team that can actually take. He's a dribbler.
Yeah.
All the rest are not that. Kobbie Mainoo, when he gets back, is not really that type of player.
Yeah.
Mason Mount's not really that type of player. Bruno's not that type of player. He's the only sort of orthodox winger, apart from Ahmad, that we have who can run at players. So he was very important to how we wanted to play, because he's going to be the only outlet. So it's few and far between. He's going to get it, but he's got to be efficient. I thought Mazraoui was really good as well.
Yeah, he was.
That was probably his best game for us. And again, Dalot, that ball he plays for him left-footed, I'm thinking, can you find him at the back post? Does really well.
Yeah.
And you're thinking, Mazraoui, you just got straight to him. But again, top save from Raya to put that past the post. I couldn't believe it. Rasmus Højlund, actually. I did a piece on United View with a bit of a fan debate. Oh, my goodness. Kicked off massive. Not kicked off, but huge opinions. One side saying, absolutely not. He's not good enough. Like, I don't care about this, that, and the other at the side. He is not good enough. The other side saying, wait a second. This kid's been hung out to dry. It's not his own fault that he was bought for 60 plus million with the add-ons. Last season, the conversation around him was, I'll tell you what, he's got a bit. He's got a bit. So you can't tell me that now he has nothing. And obviously, the confidence now is a massive issue. He has that chance where I think it's Casemiro nicks the ball.
Yeah.
And time stood still. Probably stood too still for Rasmus Højlund because he forgets that Declan Rice is... Actually, he didn't even know if that Declan Rice was there.
It's the awareness, isn't it? That is the
Takes a bad touch and the chance is gone.
I think, you know what, it was one of those, I don't know what you guys thought of it, but, you know, it'd be nice to get an outside opinion, really, but it did stink of a striker who's lacking in confidence, but also that I still expect and want to see that predatory instinct there. And, you know, that is a massive, massive chance at the highest level. So, for me, I don't know, I think he needs some time out. I really do. I've said it before. I said it a few weeks ago. I think he needs some time on the bench. I don't think he should be starting games at the moment. But, I mean, you guys must have thought when Højlund got that chance.
Yeah. I mean, in fairness, I think if it's anyone other than Declan Rice behind him, he probably gets away with it. He probably gets away with it. It's unbelievable from Declan Rice.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do just feel like there's no confidence there. And I feel sorry for him. I think he's come in, he's a young player, wasn't really given any time to adapt to the league. That Dalot chance, you know, the opportunity in the week to put it across to him.
Yeah. Clive, as a neutral in this debate, do you think Man United fans should be patient with him? If he was in your team, under the circumstances, Arsenal 14th, a lot of change, new manager, etc. Given the circumstances, if this was happening at Arsenal, would you want your fans to be more patient with him, or would you lean more on the side of, I don't think this guy's good enough anyway?
I would be patient with him. He's young. You want to build your squad value and keep your wages under control. Leave some of the older players, they need to go and spend time with the younger players. When he came in from Atlanta, he would score goals from crosses. That was his DNA. One-touch finishes, crosses. What's he not getting at Man United at the moment? He's not getting hardly any crosses. So he's not set up to succeed. You spoke about Dalot and Mazraoui earlier on. They are fullbacks. They're not wing-backs. They're being asked to be wing-backs. And now we're judging them, well, you guys are judging them as wing-backs. Is that fair? This is a system issue and you haven't got the profiles of the system that you currently want to play. That's it. And so now you're judging people for a different prism. And I feel for those players. Well, trust me, we've been here, Rory, haven't we? I'm not here to have a laugh. Yeah. We've been here when we have people on Champions League wages and we're in the Europa League. And it's a problem. It is a problem. And I can see where the club are trying to go to change that.
Yeah. And for you, Rory, just with Raheem Sterling, I did see from where I was sitting, some of the screens kept panning to Raheem Sterling. Of course, overlooked. He is a forward, and if we're talking about Raheem Sterling in his entirety, a highly decorated player, vastly experienced player, and he's played, you know, false nine for City before. He can contribute, right? Why do you think it's gone so wrong? And do you agree with the fact that Mikel Arteta is overlooking him, even though you have no forwards?
No, I think we've seen him come on, and I feel sorry for him. I think his legs have gone. I think he knows it. I think the club know it. I don't know what Chelsea are going to do with him, but you know, it's sad to see. But you look, he's had a long, long career. Those legs have done a lot of running, and no, we've seen him come on, and I mean, it's unbelievable. You know, he cannot take a player on. His passing isn't great.
Is that a confidence thing? Or is he, you know, in Space Jam where they just put their hands on the ball and all the power's gone? Like, is it that, or is it a confidence because he knows Arteta doesn't believe in him? He hasn't had a run now. He can't get a run of games as well. So if he does come on for a minute or two here, you know you're not going to play the next game. Or is it just he's done?
It's such a fall from grace, guys, because he's not old either, is he?
Exactly.
Are we saying he's peaked too early?
Yeah, because he has been around since he was 18.
Yeah, but the thing is, it's one of those. It's like he's not old, but if you looked at, for example, the number of games he's played compared to like an Ollie Watkins, I think they're a similar age, but it's an unbelievable difference. And yeah, for me, it is a confidence thing, but I don't see how he's going to regain that confidence because his body can't do it anymore. And that injection of pace that he used to have, you just don't see it anymore. So, look, could he be used against PSV in the week? Sure, because we need to rotate other players. But it's damning. It is damning for everyone involved in the decision to bring him in. That at the weekend against you, we brought on Kieran Tierney at left wing. Our 5th choice left back, who isn't even meant to be at the club anymore, realistically, coming on instead of Raheem Sterling.
Yeah.
And that's the only attacking player that we've brought in the last 18 months. So, we all know we've made mistakes. I don't think anyone probably predicted it would go as badly as it has to Raheem Sterling. I think at the start it looked questionable. There was a feeling maybe you give him a few months to get up to speed. Maybe he's not trained properly at Chelsea, but no, it's
just didn't work, did it?
It's a shame.
Yeah, it is. It is a real shame. I'm a big fan of Raheem Sterling in terms of his career as well, and I don't want to see him go out like that as well. It is quite sad. Right, moving on from the game, we have to talk about the bombshell interview that dropped last night between Manchester United owner Sir Jim Ratcliffe, minority owner, should I say, and Gary Neville. It's been a season full of nightmares on and off the pitch. We can all agree with that. And Sir Jim has finally come out and addressed the fans' concern and been very vocal throughout the last few months, from a regrettable recruitment decisions and brutal staff cuts and, no food in the canteen, etc., etc. Ryan, we'll start with you as a United fan on the panel. There's a lot to unpick in what he said across a couple of interviews he's done, one with the newspaper as well, one on BBC Sport, one on Sky, one with Overlap. So a lot to unpick. What would you take from it overall?
Oh man, it's so difficult because it is a case of where do you start? I mean, I understand the Manchester United fan base, and I felt it to a degree. I'm sure you did. Wow, finally we're getting to hear behind the scenes. We're getting to hear a Manchester United owner talk about how bad it's been. So and credit where credit's due. He sat down with Gary Neville. And he's been, refreshingly honest, I suppose you could say. He has been honest about quite a lot of it. Fair play to Gary Neville as well, I have to say. I've watched it a couple of times now. He asked the direct questions. He wasn't afraid to cut across him and push back on some.
Would have been easy for him to do that, wouldn't it?
Would have
especially
been.
Because he's on the task force of the stadium. A lot of people have labelled some sort of accusations towards Gary that, why is he not calling out Ineos? Why is he not? So I think that was good of him to push back on
I agree, yeah. Fair play to him. And I think he's won even more Manchester United fans over with that interview, which I can completely understand. But that's probably where the positives end in terms of what I was hearing. I don't want to wax lyrical about things too much because it's been alarming. Of course it has, the last, however long. And it was alarming, everything he was saying, everything that he said, which it just rang true. I can't believe how bad it is sometimes. I mean, no doubt we're all going to get stuck into it now. But I mean, even just, why don't we have a dinner with Bruno and Harry and they can raise this £40,000 that the former players aren't getting? No one suggested that. Well, hold on a second.
That's crazy.
It's crazy. And I understand they're going to say, business owners can't be across everything. But when you're getting, he's quick to say, I'm getting bad press. I'm getting bad press. When you're getting bad press like that, to not have your fingers on the pulse with something like that, I thought was alarming. I'm sorry, I did. And I don't think that's an excuse that he's so high up in the hierarchy. And he did contradict himself at one point as well, where he says he defends the Glazers. He outright defends the Glazers. Said, well, with respect, Gary, it's not all the Glazers' fault. They gave the management a lot of rope. That is
and
word,
he said
word for word
too
what
much
he said.
rope.
Yeah, too much rope. But then at the same time, is that not what he's falling victim to over the last 12 months? He's given his management team, pass, I don't know the figures on this, pass, I don't know this, no one suggested that to me. Well, you've given your management too much rope as well, and they've not, in 12 months already, they've not done the business for you either. So, look, as I say, it was refreshingly honest from him, but there were some things where I just thought, look, I want to buy into what he's saying. We'll get there. We'll get there, Gary. We'll get there again. Don't worry about that. But from what I've seen, I don't know. That's just words at this point. So, yes, it was honest. And I'm happy to hear the honesty, but it was still alarming, Flex.
Yeah, we'll unpick some of the key parts from that interview. Clive, there was a part of the interview where he said that he categorised the fans and sort of spoke about who the loyal fans are. Yeah. And he alluded to basically loyal fans being the ones who have season tickets, go to every game, and don't sell their tickets for the rest of the games. That's what loyal fans are. From an Arsenal perspective, as a neutral perspective, would you be, if the Cronkies or whoever at Arsenal categorised the fans into that sort of grouping, would you be happy with that? Is that a fine line to cross?
No, I wouldn't. I think you've got to be very careful when you're telling fans how to fan, because it's an individual, personal experience. When you cross that line, you're saying to people, this is how I see it. Now, that's going to be tough for him, I feel. The feedback from that could be a little bit tough. I do think sometimes he's trying to be transparent, and I get it, Manchester United people need that at the moment. I'm not sure it should have been him, if I'm honest with you, doing it, but he's taken it on his chin to do it because the ownership haven't done it in the past. They've just stayed quiet and watched their profits go up, and watching interest payments go out the door. And if I'm a Man United person, I'm watching the Man City machine grow and new buildings pop up in Manchester. It must be very, very hard. So I don't take the mickey out of you on this one. It must be really hard to accept. But this is a problem when you have no oversight in your club. The club has become bloated, and now he has to think about his cost base and make some painful decisions. No one cares, because they're used to being bloated. They're used to these things happening. They're used to having many marketing people in London offices. Why is this allowed to happen over the period of time? And so it's now a bloated club, and he's got to make some hard decisions, and no one's going to like him for him. Whereas the Glazers in Miami enjoying themselves, right? And their money's going up. The next phase of the club has been stamped out this morning, and that's going to bring in more revenue. And who's going to benefit from that? Primarily, it's going to be the Glazers again. And who's going to foot the bill for this expansion? The fans will take some of that, and it'll be private ownership and banks who provide money. Banks don't give money away to bloated organisations with a cost base running away with itself. So he has to do this, and it's going to be really painful, and he's going to wear it. But your point about the ex-player thing, discussion about that, I think that tells me the process of arriving at these cuts isn't robust enough. You haven't got, Man United, they turn up at Arsenal, they turn up with a coach for the players, a coach for the physios, and a coach for the execs. There's enough of them there, isn't there? And so why are they not, where are their processes to make sure when we arrive at these decisions that we've done the due diligence to make sure it's not too painful for people, or we haven't looked at an alternative. And that's what came out to me. You haven't done your work. And that's a problem. Manchester United people today I think they're going to be angry about that.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you, Rory. Do you think that Sir Jim Ratcliffe's come out better or worse now he's addressed the Man United fans?
I think it's tricky because I think, really, it's a PR job, right? The protests at the weekend, you come out, multiple interviews, followed up by the announcement of the stadium, which then sweeps up any of the negative things that came out of the interviews last night. They get whipped up into the stadium thing.
100%.
Yeah, exactly. And they probably needed to do that. I think, if you're a United fan now, you're probably looking at it going, do you trust the Glazers and Ineos to pull off what is by far and away the biggest moment in United's recent history? This isn't like pulling off a summer transfer window or even a 2 or 3 year plan with the manager. This is 15, 20 years, the biggest project you will do. Do you trust those people to run this? Now, I don't know the answer to that, and I don't need to worry about it as an Arsenal fan, but I'd be concerned because some of those answers from Sir Jim Ratcliffe last night were, a couple of them were like scenes out of The Office in terms of his complete lack of understanding of what's going on. When Gary Neville's suggesting that dinner, and he turned around, I didn't think of that.
That was so alarming.
And no one told me that. Well, so how many other things have you not thought of with this 15, 20-year plan that no one's told you about? So, I think United fans are right to be angry. I think, no one's really talking about the fact that why have you got to build a new stadium? Why after 20 years of the Glazers have you got into this
Well, that's just it as well, Rory. Gary Neville tried to explore that, which is basically, Jim, the Glazers have done this.
Yeah.
It's that simple. The Glazers have allowed Manchester United to decay like a rotten tooth, right? And that's it. And when he says you're a shield for them, that's something that we've been saying for a little while. As soon as that strategic alternative was taken up and Sir Jim bought into the club as a minority owner, that was the day when the Glazers said, perfect.
Yeah.
Because now, Sir Jim, and this is what Gary tried to say to him, you're taking the majority of the flack as a minority owner. Make that make sense. Even when it was Ineos coming in and saying they're in control of all the sporting, the Glazers have literally just gone, we want to hand you that, stay as majority owners, still keep taking money out of the club, still get the rewards for anything good you may do, but the things you do wrong, they're also on you now as well. And all of a sudden they get to hide in the shadows, which is why Manchester United fans are not being kidded.
Yeah.
They're not being fooled. They're not being tricked into forgetting the real reason why we're in this predicament, like you said, Rory. And also on top of that, they're also not giving Sir Jim a pass in terms of being complicit within the last 12 months. Of course, no one expects Sir Jim Ratcliffe to come in and change this all within a year. No Man United fan expects that, would be naive to. But when he's holding his hands up to say, Eric Ten Hag, £15 million of wrong decision, 200 million quid spent for his squad. 700 in all, but what they did, wrong. Bringing in Ruben Amorim, this, that and the other, the ticket prices, etc., etc. He's holding his hands up to very costly errors that have contributed on top of the Glazer mess before he's already here. But at the same time, I did hear him say some things that rang true, Ryan. I want to ask you about these.
Go on.
When he sort of said, Man United's going to run out of money by the end of 2025. Now, is he being a bit sensationalist with the timescale? But he's basically alluding to, we cannot keep spending at this rate and the income not matching it. That's just basics of business. If you spend more than you bring in, you're done. Then he went on to sort of talk about, this summer, we are basically, if we don't sign a player, we have to write a cheque for £89 million.
Yeah.
So essentially, he's saying, if I don't change something, where's that 89 million quid going to come from? Because banks ain't going to give it to us. You know, investors ain't giving it to us. Glazers ain't, he didn't say it, Glazers ain't going to give it to us. I haven't put a penny into the club.
Yeah. Do you know what? I think it's a case, again, I'll play devil's advocate with you.
Yeah.
No doubt he's in a difficult position and he's picking up the Glazers' mess as well. He's got a lot of difficult decisions to make, a direct ramification of what the Glazers have done. And things like this, like the payment structure, for example, like, you know, these part payments. And if we don't sign one player, we're paying, 90 odd million, basically. We talked about this off camera. There'll be other clubs that's happening for as well. I think what the damning thing about it is the type of players that we're paying off, which goes back to the mistakes that the Glazers are making. Sir Jim is in this position where he's damned if you do, damned if you don't, because we talked about, we didn't hear from the Glazers at all. And now he's come out and he's, like you say, he's come out and he said, look, hold my hands up, we did this wrong, we did this wrong, we did this wrong. But that doesn't make it okay. It's okay to be honest, and it's great we're hearing from you, but that does not make it okay just because you're owning up to your mistakes in 12 months. It's only been 12 months. And to be fair, you've piled onto the misery at points because of this negligence, which Gary Neville does refer to. And I'm not buying as well. Just going back to it, I've riled myself, footballers. I've riled myself.
It does. It gets your blood pressure going.
It does, yeah, because I'm not buying you didn't. If you're telling me you didn't think of a simple solution like Bruno and Harry Maguire going to a dinner and raising some money elsewhere and just being less savage about the whole matter, you don't care about the club.
The news at Man United does not stop coming in today, and a new 100,000-seater stadium has been announced by Sir Jim Ratcliffe. It's already being tipped to be the greatest football stadium in the world, and designer Lord Foster has described it as a mixed-use miniature city of the future, driving a new wave of growth and creating a global destination that Mancunians can be proud of. It's a massive announcement. Some may say what we've been talking about earlier, to sort of sweep away some of the negative press. Here you go, United fans, but you might not have any lunch anymore, etc. But we're going to do more than fix the roof. We're going to give you a 100,000-seater stadium, one of the best in the world, let alone Europe. And this is part of returning this great club to its status of the biggest club in the world. Ryan, as a United fan, initial thoughts, 100,000-seater stadium. And we've also seen pictures and concepts and a video and some more presentations around it.
It looks incredible. I mean, I'm sure we can all agree it looks absolutely fantastic. I suppose it's when you delve into, can I feel excited and can I also feel somber about it all? Do you know what I mean? Because, I mean, we know that it's been coming. I am of the opinion, having, thought about this for a while, as I say, we've talked about whether Manchester United are going to get a new stadium, that it's inevitable. I think if we're going to go to the next level, that this is something that we had to do. Don't get me wrong. And a mate of mine said, geek for architecture. And he said, Lord Foster's like the best of the best, So look, it sounds like they're going to do it properly. It's going to cost $2 billion. It's going to generate $7 billion a year for the economy and all that stuff. So look, it's great. But it just does what Rory said earlier, just stinks of just PR. Like, here we go, let's chuck the new stadium at them. So,
but we were always looking at a new stadium.
We were.
That's not like, this isn't something that's been plucked and go, if it was, we might be looking at getting a new one. Like that, then I'm like, you're just trying to, hang on a minute, let's talk about it. But
it's the announcement.
The whole task force, this has been a thing.
Yeah, look, I say, in the cold light of day, I'm excited. I'm gonna, if I can have some time to mourn about Old Trafford, no doubt, I'm going to lock myself in a room.
Did you want a new stadium? A lot of Man United fans say, no, there's no history, just revamp this, etc., etc. Would you in that camp?
Flex, it's so difficult to say still. It's so difficult to say. If you could have offered me an alternative where we could have renovated Old Trafford, but we've just gone so far past that point that I've parted ways with that mentality. Yeah. So, look, it's exciting that we could have this new stadium and we're going to be the best of the best. But, yeah, I don't know. It's because of everything that's happened PR-wise, it's difficult to get as excited as I'd like to be about it, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. For you, Clive, does this put pressure on Arsenal with a stadium expansion? Are clubs just about, who's got the biggest stadium, the best facilities, who can draw the biggest match day income? Is it all about the commercial side now?
It's, well, we talk about your transfers you've got to pay off in the summer, etc. You can't keep losing money because of PSR now. It's tracking over a 3-year period. So that's the sort of regulation pressure that wasn't there in the past, right? So the reason why you're going for 100,000, why do you think that is rather than 80,000? Because more people can come in, more revenue come into the club, which allows them to borrow against that potential future revenue. It's just business. That's what this is. It's just business. And Arsenal will be looking, no doubt, at a multi-purpose stadium, because that's what you should have in the middle of London. You should have that. That's the next phase for us. We have the structures there. Manchester United couldn't really do Old Trafford because you have to reduce the capacity while you're doing it. I don't think he's going to be taking less money in at this period of time. It's much better to have a greenfield site next door and build something which is much more modern and purpose-built. So I understand the direction they're going. It sort of makes sense. They've linked in with the government for the whole regeneration of the area. They have to do it. The problem is, mate, the problem. This is probably 15 years too late. That's the problem. Manchester United should have been doing this a long time ago if they wanted to hold their status in the game. They've allowed it to go, and they've bought expensive players. I call it status anxiety. You buy players to try and get you the top four.
We're still big.
We're still big.
Good,
Look, we just bought Casemiro.
Yeah.
We're still big. But really, what you're doing is you're signing your death warrant going forward, right? So, and someone needs to draw a line, and he's done it. He's going to get kicking for it, but someone needs to do it.
Yeah. Fair.
For you, Rory, should Man United be focusing on their on-field issues, their financial issues, or do you see why this was one of the main things that actually did need doing immediately when you look at the state of Old Trafford?
Yes, well, it all needs doing at the same time. I think that's the problem. Having not spent for so long, now you're in a position where, and you look at it and you go, okay, well, you're going to spend this money on the stadium. Can you continue spending on the squad? If you can't, it's all well and good having a 100,000-seater stadium. Are you going to fill that for Conference League football at best? I don't know. So, no, I like...
Probably.
Probably. With loyal fans,
hated, adored, never ignored, mate. We're in the Championship, we still get 100k.
If
don't worry about
that. Bottom half of the table for the next 5 years.
Yeah, absolutely.
But look, one thing I will credit them is, at least from the pictures that we've seen, people have their opinions on what it looks like, circus tent or the Trident looks cool. At least it's not just like a really boring, massive bowl that's just like the most efficient way to get 100,000 people. At least it's different.
Yeah.
I did disagree with something Sir Jim Ratcliffe said this morning. He said the billion fans of United across the world, now they will travel to see the new stadium, suggesting that they wouldn't travel to Old Trafford.
Anyway.
And I think that's completely wrong. Say if you compared it to any sort of the pyramids or something, if you knock them down and built some new ones, it wouldn't mean that people would suddenly want to come. Now they're going to come.
Yeah.
So I think you got that wrong. But yeah, look, you've got to start somewhere. And I mean, we learned firsthand that when you build a new stadium, it can...
It's not easy.
It can cost you, and we went for a long period of not spending any money on the squad. So we'll wait and see if that happens. But it had to be done. It did have to be done.
Yeah, like for me, I think those initial pictures, I'll be 100% honest with you. I went, these circus tent things. What? Okay, let me look a bit closer into that. And I went to the World Cup and did the whole tournament, and it reminded me of a stadium, Al Bayt Stadium, it was called. England played a few games there as well, and it was in a big. It was so unique. I remember going in, going, "Wow, I'm in this big tent." But now my team's done it, and it looks a bit. I was like, not really.
They're going to take the mick out of us for that, aren't they?
Yeah, exactly. But we have to kind of, as United fans, separate out from the noise, because if you listen to rival fans, it's fix your roof, look at your stadium, you can't even fit in the seats. We proceed to build a £105 billion stadium in it. 105 capacity.
Yeah.
and it's, oh, look, it looks like a set. So let's not try and please them. You know, Tottenham got the best stadium in the league. So it's just a toilet bowl. It's just that as soon as you step in there, mate, it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
So I'm not really worried about that. I just didn't know how I felt. But as I saw more of it and saw the multi-purpose nature of it, you look at what the Millennium Dome was, as we now know as the O2. You know, it's similar to that, where it's encapsulated in this sort of sheath, this capsule. But there's shopping in there. There's food. There's entertainment. There's so much going on inside it. I think United should be indicative of something like that, which is a hub of that. And I did agree with Sir Jim Ratcliffe when he said, we're saying we're dining at the table with Real Madrid and Barcelona as the three powerhouses of football, right, in the world, let alone Europe. Where's our Bernabeu? Where's our new camp? You know, Barcelona, who had to pull every economic lever possible to survive this period, went, what, you think we're letting Real Madrid build that? Knock down the new camp. Yeah. Messi played here, Rivaldo played here, Ronaldo played, knock it down and build it better. Now, we're kind of doing that on the same, you know, we wouldn't permit us. So for me, I understand that our heartstrings are in Old Trafford and people say it's got no history, but that's part of moving on. You have to create new history. You have to create new memories. You adapt till you die. We've kept adapting Old Trafford to its optimum point till it started to decay. So for me, I've always wanted a new stadium. I think they have a duty of care to make sure that it's not like an NFL stadium. I went to the SoFi for our game it was unbelievable.
Beautiful, isn't it?
I looked at the SoFi and I got a lot of heat for this on social media because I went, Ineos, bring me this. But obviously, I don't want a nightclub in the you know, behind the goal. Obviously, I don't want the seats far, but it has to be purpose-built for football. You tell that screen, Real Madrid have done it. Yeah. It's the same screen. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? It goes round. I want things like that. I want us to have the best. Right, to round off this special edition of Inside Devils and Gooners, we're going to have a quick fiery questions into the room. We're going to add them in to see what happens. It's going to go fine. Everyone's going to be honest. Everyone's not going to try and point score. Everyone's just going to give their, you know, true opinion. This is interesting. Who has had the most disappointing season? Man United or Arsenal? The floor is open.
Wow,
don't all rush at once.
Do you know what? Do you know what? You know I don't want to rush in because I'm disappointed with our season. I'm extremely disappointed with our season. Yeah. So I mean, how can I say Arsenal, who, you know, briefly looked like they were going to win the title, have had more of a disappointing season? However, when it's all said and done, we're probably going to win the same thing, which, you know,
no. We'll get the Europa League and they're going to win nothing.
We could win the Europa League. Don't get me wrong, but I mean, yeah. So in terms of ambition, maybe you guys are more disappointed because you thought for a second you could be in a title race and you've quite quickly faltered away.
Yeah, but so if us finishing second is more disappointing than you finishing 14th, what has happened to Manchester United?
Yeah,
as a football? If that is less disappointing than us finishing second, don't get me wrong, we are disappointed. Going into next season, are you excited?
Well, no. But then, you're just going to finish in a Champions League spot to not win the Champions League again, really. You know, so it's, I don't know. I think I'm disappointed, but I think in terms of your ambitions, you guys surely, you guys fell off quite quickly.
There are problems. And there are problems. The problems that we have right now, maybe we don't attack centrally enough and don't penetrate the back line. You know what? It's really, really upsetting, right? Really upsetting. We've got some Champions League money coming in the summer. It's our second year in now. We're probably going to buy a few players and maybe fix that. So, yeah, we'll go again next year. The age profile of our squad is quite good. The squad value is quite good. The wages are well managed. OK, we could do a bit better. We could sharpen up. We need to underpin our striker. We need to make sure we get a rest Bukayo Saka. But then we look to Manchester United. And this is not the Manchester United I grew up with. You know, this is not. You know, this is not the Manchester United I grew up with. And so I would definitely say this has been a revealing season for Manchester United. It's almost been like you've been running trials on the pitch to see who can go with the squad, go next year, and you're going to have to turn over that squad. But your owner has distressed some of your assets in the last day or so. It's going to be a challenging season, revealing season, and see what happens next year.
If Man United win the Europa League, and I get to come to you in the summer, Clive, and say, in the Champions League, from 15th, by the way, from 14th, I'll be saying, where do you fancy going then? Where are you going to be going in the opening, in this league format? I fancy going Bayern Munich. Do you want to go Bernabeu? If I get to say that to you, you've won nothing this year.
Yeah.
What would the perception be then?
If you win the Europa League, and fair play to you, you've managed to shortcut a disastrous situation.
Yeah.
A disaster.
Would that be a better season than Arsenal?
Yeah, if we had a better season.
I think it'll be absolutely massive for you. Massive for you. That money, because I looked at our balance sheet the other day and there was over £90 million from the Champions League last season. You could do that right now, couldn't you?
Absolutely.
So I can't. That is success for you. Absolute success. I don't mean to patronise when I say it.
No.
That is success. Massive success. What we're doing, we may be falling away this year, taking a step backwards. Most of it's explainable. Let's see what lessons we learn to go again next year. That's where I am.
So not really enough. Didn't say which. Would that be a better season than Arsenal's?
I think it'd be a really good season.
Rory, if you saw us win the Champions League, if
I saw you
well,
win
be in it
Champions
first.
League,
We
then,
definitely won't win that. If you saw us win the Europa League this year,
Have we had a better season?
have we had a better season? And you win nothing,
No.
and you go out in the next round of
No,
Champions
because we're
League.
still in the same spot next season, but we're not in the same spot next season in terms of where our clubs are actually at. If we're going to be sat there on Thursday night, Arsenal are already thinking about the Champions League quarter-final. You're watching Casemiro trundling around trying to get through Sociedad.
He's not wrong.
You're not going to be sat there.
That's true.
You're not going to be sat there on Thursday night thinking, "Wow, at least we're not Arsenal."
Well,
Whereas
I'll
I'll be sat there thinking, "At least we're not United."
Yeah, I suppose so. But I mean, what's the point in being second every year?
Well, because you're getting close to coming first.
But you could closer's not good enough. You've got to actually get there, haven't you?
Well, get over the line.
You've got to get over the line.
Even last season, to be fair, this was a thing when we finished 8th, and you finished 2nd again, and we won the FA Cup, and it was like who's had a better season, and it feels like, look, for me, listen, 14th was a disgrace.
I mean, we can't talk Flex.
It's
Don't
an
get me wrong.
absolute disgrace, and I always like to wind Arsenal fans up with this because it's just funny.
Yeah,
Realistically, the truth is, they're probably right.
Yeah.
I'll be honest, because we're 14th, mate.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we've been winning cups for the last 2 years at the expense of being a really bad football.
That's the thing. We've had that period of winning FA Cups and finishing 8th. And
But then you get the criticism now of, well, you phased this, you phased that. Since he's ripped up the team and rebuilt it in his image, Arteta, what have you done?
When we won the FA Cups, no one gave us flowers for it. They just said, well, you aren't doing anything in the league. Well, we didn't qualify for Champions League. You're never going to get there. When we get there and come second, well, you bottled it. And then when we come second again, well, you're still not done it. Well, the other teams are not bad. That Man City team is not bad.
Let's be honest before we wrap up, right? This is the first time in my lifetime, because when we went down last time in the 70s, obviously, I wasn't here. I wasn't around. Honestly, at this point of the season, whether it's realistic or not, I had to look at the bottom 3, like, seriously.
See the gap.
I had to, and I'm being deadly serious. I'm going, don't need Ipswich picking up a win against Spurs. Don't need Wolves getting a win against them. Don't need this, don't need that. Until it started to be like, okay, we'll be fine. For like a couple of match weeks, I was like, I'll tell you what, mate, that's going to get a bit dangerous. How are these not going to respond if they're already 6 points away from it? Do you know what I mean? So just for that alone, we've been a disgrace this year.
Oh, yeah.
But if we win that Europa, let me tell you something. That's going to change. That's all we've got time for on this week's episode of Inside Devils. A big thank you to Ryon Scott-Douglas, Clive Palmer and Rory Talks Football. We'll see you on another episode next week. Take care. Bye-bye.